In Proverbs 18 verse 16, and I know you know this verse. Sometimes we know it so much that we don't know it. Now, it says, a man's gift makes room for him. Shamanana Masaya. And brings him before great men. Now, I know that we know that the word gift there is not talking about spiritual gifts. He's talking about material gift. If I may put it in my own words, can I do that? It simply means a man's material giving will give him access to the resources of greatness. Listen to me. Royalty is not just a nice word. Royalty is who you are. Are you sure you are listening to me? If you are listening, let your amen be the loudest in the building over there. I thank you. In other words, a man's material giving can give him access to the resources. I like sharing one or two testimonies. Let me share two with you. Some years ago, I was preaching in London. And I was in this great church. I wouldn't mention the church. If I mention everybody from London, well, everybody knows that church. And I was taking an offering because there was something important that the church wanted to do. And I was taking an offering of 3,000 pounds. 3,000 pounds in dollars is about 5,000. And I was taking this offering, and immediately I asked for it. The first man that jumped out of his seat was a Nigerian who now lives in the UK. He stepped out, and right there he wrote this check. He did it so fast that I was so touched. I laid hands on him and I blessed him, because a lot of other people moved out and did the same. But listen to this. About 6 months later, I was back home in Nigeria, going through one of our local airports, and suddenly I noticed a gentleman that had seen me from a distance, and he screamed, "Ah!" Oh, I said, "Oh God, Lord help me. What have I done?" And he started running towards me. I had someone with me. I said, "You got to help me now." And when he got to where I was, he began to roll on the floor. I said, "Oh God, it's worse than I thought." And I grabbed him. I wanted to get him up. He said, "Leave me alone." I said, "Oh Lord, help me." And people were looking, watching us. Finally, we got him. We put him on a seat. I said, "What happened?" And he said, 6 months ago, you came to our church in London. He said, "Let me tell you my story. I have been a believer in Nigeria, but I left Nigeria frustrated. And I thought, well, if I go to the UK, things will change for me." Goliath is everywhere. And so he said, I got to the UK and it became worse. And he said, in 8 years, my whole bank account, what I have, and he said, I think I have tried, is 3,000 pounds. And he said, on Saturday night, I heard a voice that said to me, "Take your checkbook to to church in the morning. So he said, I obeyed. When he got to church, he said, immediately I said it, he knew that he was the one. And he jumped out of his seat. Brother John, he jumped out of his seat and he said, I wrote that check like a madman. He said, when I got home, I asked my wife, what have I done? It's good to have a good wife. And the wife said, you did it right. That's what God told you to do. He said a few weeks later, there was a phone call from Nigeria, from a government house. And somebody called and said, are you Mr. So-and-so? He said, yes. He said, the governor said I should call you. And he wants you to come home. There is a contract he wants to give you to do some things in government house. He said, I hung up. I said, this is, we call it 419. He said, this cannot be real. So he dropped it. He hung up. And then the man called back 3 times. The 4th time, the wife said, listen to him. So the man said, look, this is the last time. If you want to do it, come. If you don't, that's your business. So he listened, but he had no money to buy a ticket. And the wife went out, good wives, oh my God, like my own. She went out and borrowed the money to buy him a ticket to return home. And he went home, and when he got to the government house, the first person he met was the man that called him. To cut a long story short, they gave him the contract. And then another contract. And another contract. And another contract. And when he was talking to me, within just 3 months or thereabout, my goodness, he went back on the floor rolling. He said, now I fly between London and Nigeria, London and Nigeria. I do business in London. I do business in Nigeria. My God, you are royalty. If you believe it, wave your hand and shout, yes, yes, yes.